At 8:47 on the morning of July 8, 1944, Private First Class Robert Chen knelt at the edge of a Norman minefield with his helmet full of water, watching Sergeant William Morrison yell at him to get back. Stop wasting time. Stop doing whatever stupid thing he thought he was doing. Chen didn't respond. He poured the water onto the ground 6 inches past Morrison's cleared area and watched it pool. The water didn't spread evenly, didn't soak in at a consistent rate. Surface tension created an irregular pattern, edges pooling where they shouldn't, absorption delayed by maybe 3 seconds. Chen marked the spot with white engineer tape and looked up at Morrison. There's something buried here. Morrison stared at him. You found that with water? Yes, Sergeant. Morrison probed the marked location with his bayonet. 4 inches down, the blade hit resistance. He excavated carefully, hands moving dirt aside in small increments. Wooden box, 10 centimeters square, shoe mine 35. Exactly where Chen predicted. Morrison looked at the mine, then at Chen, then back at the mine. That was 37 minutes into the mission. 37 minutes after Chen decided regulations could wait and walked into the minefield with a helmet full of water and an idea from his father's hardware store. What happened in the next 4 hours would change how every engineer company in Europe detected wooden mines. Captain James Whitaker stood in front of 2nd Platoon, Ninth Engineer Battalion, Third Infantry Division, and briefed the mission everyone knew would kill somebody. The briefing room was a shot-up French farmhouse 3 kilometers inland from Omaha Beach. 24 engineers sat on ammunition crates and rubble. The air smelled like cordite and wet stone. Whitaker pointed to a hand-drawn map tacked to the wall. German supply depot. 200 meters past this minefield. Intelligence estimates 40 shoe mines scattered across the approach. We clear a route by 1400 hours so infantry can assault the depot. Corporal Thomas Wu raised his hand. What's the timeline, sir? 5 hours. Maybe less if the Germans decide to drop mortars on us while we work. Nobody laughed. German mortars were zeroed on this exact location. Everyone in the room knew it. 5 hours in a minefield under potential mortar fire meant casualties. Question was how many. Whitaker continued. Standard clearing procedure, visual inspection, probe confirmation, mark safe corridors with white tape. Sergeant Morrison's squad has point. Morrison nodded. 31 years old, Detroit, 3 years with combat engineers. He'd cleared 14 minefields since North Africa, Morocco, Sicily, Italy, now France. He knew the job, knew the risks, knew the statistics. Whitaker dismissed the briefing. Morrison gathered his squad, 8 men total. Private First Class Robert Chen was the demolition specialist. Chen was 22, Sacramento, California. His father ran a hardware store on J Street. Chen grew up around tools, materials, practical solutions to mechanical problems. The Army trained him on mine detection, mine neutralization, mine disposal. Standard doctrine, standard procedures, standard equipment. But they didn't train him on wooden mines because American doctrine said wooden mines were rare, impractical, easily detected through visual inspection. The doctrine was wrong. The shoe mine 35 was a German innovation born from material shortages and tactical creativity. Wooden box construction, 10 centimeters square, 7 centimeters deep, 200 grams of pressed TNT. Pressure plate trigger activated at 5 kilograms of force. The only metal component was the detonator mechanism, maybe 30 grams total. Too small for metal detectors to find reliably, too sensitive for bayonet probes to contact safely. Step on a shoe mine, you lost your foot. Maybe your leg. Maybe your life depending on where the blast directed. The wooden construction made them invisible to standard American detection equipment. Metal detectors swept right over them. Probe techniques couldn't distinguish wooden boxes from rocks, roots, or compacted soil. Visual detection worked only if you could see disturbed earth patterns, and German engineers had learned to camouflage their mines perfectly. They buried shoe mines at varying depths, sometimes 4 inches down, sometimes 8. They covered them with native vegetation. They created false disturbance patterns to waste American time. They mixed wooden mines with metal mines to force engineers to use multiple detection methods simultaneously. The result was a minefield that killed Americans at rates doctrine writers never anticipated. In June 1944 alone, the Ninth Engineer Battalion lost 23 men to wooden mines. 23 soldiers blown apart doing everything by the manual, following every procedure, using approved techniques, and dying anyway because the manual was written before wooden mines became standard German practice. The casualty statistics were worse when you counted wounded. 41 engineers injured in June, 17 amputations. Legs mostly, sometimes feet, twice hands when engineers tried to excavate mines they'd found. The survival rate was better than it had been in Italy, but only because field hospitals had gotten good at trauma surgery. The medics could save your life. They couldn't save your limbs. Chen knew the statistics. Every engineer knew them. You didn't talk about the numbers, but you knew. 23 dead in 30 days. That was 1 engineer every 30 hours. Your odds of finishing a 30-day rotation were maybe 70% if you cleared minefields regularly. 30% chance of death or crippling injury. You accepted those odds because the infantry needed clear routes and somebody had to provide them. But accepting bad odds didn't mean Chen liked them. Morrison's squad reached the minefield at 8:13. The field looked like every other piece of Norman farmland. Grass, dirt, scattered rocks, a few small bushes. 200 meters of ordinary ground hiding 40 mines that would kill you if you stepped wrong. Morrison knelt at the field edge and studied the terrain, looking for visual indicators, disturbed soil, irregular vegetation patterns, trip wires, anything that suggested buried explosives. He saw nothing obvious. The Germans had done good work. He pulled his bayonet and started probing. The standard technique involved inserting the blade at a 30-degree angle every 6 inches, feeling for resistance, listening for contact sounds. Metal mines gave you distinct feedback. The bayonet contacted metal with a specific sound and feel. You heard it, felt it, stopped immediately. Wooden mines gave you nothing reliable. The bayonet contacted wood with the same sound and feel as rocks, roots, compacted soil, buried debris. Morrison couldn't tell the difference. He probed carefully, slowly, hoping he'd recognize a mine before his bayonet triggered it. The shoe mine and pressure plate required 5 kilograms of force. A careful bayonet probe delivered maybe 1 kilogram. You had margin for error, but not much. After 20 minutes, Morrison had cleared 3 meters. He'd probed every 6 inches across a 1-meter width, 18 square feet of confirmed safe ground, 197 meters remaining. Chen did the math. 3 meters in 20 minutes. 9 meters per hour. 200 meters divided by 9 meters per hour. 22 hours total, except they had 5 hours before the infantry assault timeline. And German mortars would start falling long before 22 hours elapsed. The mission was impossible using standard techniques. Morrison knew it. Kept probing anyway because the manual said, probe. Orders said clear the route, and soldiers followed orders even when orders made no sense. Chen stood at the field edge, watching Morrison work. Watching him probe blind through ground that might explode any second. Chen's brain kept circling back to a memory from his father's hardware store. 1938. Sacramento. A customer came in complaining about a wet basement. Water pooling in the northeast corner, no obvious leak, no explanation. Chen's father grabbed a shovel and they walked to the customer's house. The basement floor was concrete, apparently solid, no visible cracks. But water pooled in one corner. Chen's father studied the pool for maybe 30 seconds, then said, "You've got a buried pipe leaking under the foundation, right there." He pointed to the exact center of the water pool. They excavated, found a lead pipe buried 18 inches down, pinhole leak. Exactly where Chen's father predicted. Chen asked how he knew. His father explained. The leaking pipe created a compression zone in the soil around it. Compressed soil had different drainage characteristics than normal soil. Water from the leak migrated upward through the compressed zone and pooled on the surface. The pooling pattern revealed what eyes couldn't see. Buried objects created compression. Compression changed drainage. Water revealed the compression. Chen remembered that lesson. Remembered his father saying, "Water doesn't lie. It flows according to physics. You just have to read what it tells you." Now Chen stood at a minefield edge, watching Morrison probe blind, thinking about buried objects and compression zones and water drainage patterns. A shoe mine was a buried object. The mine itself, plus the disturbed soil from burial, created a compression zone. Compressed soil should have different drainage characteristics. Water poured on the surface should pool differently over a buried mine. Should. Maybe. Possibly. Chen had no idea if the theory worked. The mine was smaller than a leaking pipe. The compression zone would be smaller, subtler, maybe too subtle to detect. The soil type was different from Sacramento basement clay. Norman farmland was loamy, well-drained, completely unlike California soil. The water volume required was unknown. The time needed to see pooling effects was unknown. The reliability was unknown. Everything about the idea was untested speculation based on a plumbing repair from 6 years ago. But Morrison was 3 meters into a 200-meter minefield, probing blind at 9 meters per hour, and Germans had mortars. Chen looked at his helmet. Standard M1 steel pot. Held maybe 1 liter of water. He looked at his canteen. Full. He looked at the minefield. Regulations said you didn't modify detection procedures without authorization. Regulations said you didn't experiment with untested techniques in active minefields. Regulations said you followed the manual, and if the manual got you killed, at least you died doing things correctly. Chen decided regulations could wait. He filled his helmet with water from his canteen and walked into the cleared zone behind Morrison. Morrison heard him coming, turned around. "Chen, what are you doing?" "Testing something, Sergeant." "Testing what?" Chen didn't answer. He poured water onto the ground Morrison had already probed. The water spread evenly, soaked in at a consistent rate, normal drainage. No buried objects. Exactly what Morrison's probe work confirmed. Chen moved to the edge of the cleared zone, 6 inches past Morrison's last probe point. Uncleared ground. Potential mine location. He poured water. The water pooled. Didn't spread evenly. Surface tension created an irregular pattern along the edges. Absorption delayed by maybe 3 seconds compared to the cleared ground. Chen marked the spot with white engineer tape. Morrison stared at him. "What did you just do?" "Found something buried, Sergeant. Recommend you probe that location." Morrison looked at the tape, looked at Chen, looked at his bayonet. He moved to the marked spot and probed carefully. 4 inches down, the blade hit resistance. Wooden box. He excavated with his hands, moving dirt aside in small increments, exposing the mine without triggering it. Shoe mine 35. 200 grams of TNT. 5-kilogram pressure trigger. Exactly where Chen's water test indicated. Morrison stared at the mine for 5 seconds. Then he looked at Chen. How does this work? Chen explained compression zones, drainage patterns, surface pooling, explained his father's plumbing repair, explained the theory about buried objects affecting water flow. Morrison listened without interrupting. When Chen finished, Morrison asked the only question that mattered. Can you do it again? Chen refilled his helmet from his canteen. The steel pot held approximately 1 liter when filled to 3/4 capacity. Each test consumed maybe 200 milliliters, 5 tests per helmet. He had 1 full canteen remaining. Morrison had 2. The other 6 squad members had canteens. Total water available, maybe 9 liters. 45 possible tests if the math held. Intelligence estimated 40 mines in this field. The math worked, if the method worked. Chen moved 3 meters left from the first mine location. Poured water on uncleared ground. Watched the drainage pattern. The water spread evenly, soaked in within 2 seconds. Normal drainage. He moved forward 6 inches, poured again. Even spread, normal absorption. Forward another 6 inches. This time the water pooled. Edges irregular. Absorption delayed. Chen marked the spot. Morrison probed. His bayonet hit resistance at 5 inches depth. He excavated carefully. Another shoe mine, perfectly camouflaged, invisible to visual inspection, undetectable by metal detector, indistinguishable from rocks using standard probe techniques, but visible to water in 30 seconds. Morrison looked at mine number 2, then at Chen. Lucky guess was off the table now. 2 successful detections meant pattern, not chance. Chen moved to a new location, 4 meters right of the cleared zone. Poured water, watched pooling, marked the spot. Morrison probed. Mine number 3. Morrison stood up slowly. His hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear, from the realization that Chen had just solved a problem that had killed 23 engineers in 30 days. How much water do we need? Morrison asked. Chen calculated aloud. Helmet holds 1 liter. Each test uses 200 milliliters, 5 tests per helmet. We have 8 canteens in the squad, full capacity, maybe 9 liters total, 45 tests possible. Morrison did his own math. 40 mines estimated, 45 tests available. If your hit rate stays this high, we can clear this field. If the method works consistently, Sergeant. It's worked 3 times in 5 minutes. Standard probe technique took me 20 minutes to clear 3 meters, and I found nothing. Morrison keyed his radio. All squad members, rally on my position. Bring your canteens. 7 engineers jogged over. They'd been staged at the field edge, waiting for Morrison to clear enough space for them to spread out and begin parallel probe work. Now, they clustered around Morrison and Chen, staring at 3 marked mines. Private Daniel Hayes spoke first. Sergeant, what's going on? Morrison pointed at Chen. Chen found a new detection method. He's going to demonstrate. Chen felt every eye shift to him. He refilled his helmet, moved to uncleared ground, poured water. The squad watched in silence. The water pooled with irregular edges. Chen marked the location. Hayes said, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen." Morrison's voice went flat. Dumb or not, it found 3 mines in 5 minutes. You got a better idea? Hayes said nothing. Morrison organized the squad into pairs. 1 man pours water, 1 man probes confirmation. Chen, teach them what to look for. Chen explained the drainage patterns. Even spread meant no mine. Pooling with irregular edges meant possible mine. Delayed absorption meant high probability mine. The visual cues were subtle but consistent. You had to watch carefully for the first 3 to 5 seconds after pouring. The difference between safe ground and mined ground revealed itself in how water moved. Corporal Thomas Wu asked, "What's the failure rate?" "Unknown," Chen said. "I've done 4 tests, found 4 mines. But sample size is too small for statistical confidence. So this might not work." "Correct." Wu looked at Morrison. "Sergeant?" Morrison pointed at the 3 marked mines. "Probe technique found 0 mines in 20 minutes. Water technique found 3 mines in 6 minutes. We've got 4 hours 40 minutes until mission deadline. I'll take the method that's working." Wu nodded. The other engineers nodded. Hayes looked skeptical, but didn't argue. Morrison spread the squad across the minefield in a line formation, 2 meters apart. Each pair had 1 man with a helmet or canteen cup for pouring, 1 man with a bayonet for probe confirmation. Chen took point position with Morrison. Hayes paired with Corporal Wu. The others formed teams. Morrison gave the order. "Advance in line. Pour, watch, mark, probe, confirm. When you find mines, mark with white tape and move on. Disposal team handles neutralization. Our job is detection and route clearance. Speed matters more than perfection. Execute." The squad moved forward in coordinated rhythm. Pour water, watch drainage, mark suspicious locations, probe confirmation. The pattern repeated every 30 seconds across an 8-meter front. Chen found mine number 4 at 8:51. Hayes found number 5 at 8:53. Wu found number 6 at 8:54. The water method was working. By 9:35, the squad had cleared 50 meters. 18 mines marked, 0 casualties, 0 detonations. The clearing rate was approximately 50 meters per 45 minutes. Sustainable pace would put them at 200 meters by 1300 hours. 1 hour ahead of deadline. But Chen noticed something in the mine placement pattern. The Germans weren't scattering mines randomly. The 18 mines they'd found formed rough geometric clusters. Heavier concentration near natural approach routes where terrain funneled movement. Lighter coverage in open areas where troops could spread out. The pattern made tactical sense. Place mines where enemy forces were most likely to walk. But the pattern also meant predictability. Chen found a mine, then poured water in a 2-meter radius circle around it. Found 2 more mines within the circle. He called Morrison over. "Sergeant, the mines aren't random. They're clustered. When we find one, there are usually more nearby. Spacing appears consistent, approximately 2 to 3 meters. Morrison saw it immediately. The 18 marked mines formed 4 distinct clusters with 2 to 3 meters between individual mines within each cluster. He changed squad tactics on the spot. New procedure. When you find a mine, saturate the local area. Pour water in a grid pattern, 2-meter radius. Find the cluster before moving forward. The squad adapted quickly. Find one mine, check surrounding area, find the cluster, mark everything, move on. The efficiency increase was dramatic. Clearing rate jumped from 50 meters per 45 minutes to 50 meters per 30 minutes. By 10:15, they'd cleared 80 meters. 26 mines marked. Then the German mortars started. The first round landed at 10:34, 40 meters short of the squad's position. The explosion threw dirt and shrapnel in a 15-meter radius. No casualties, but the message was clear. German forward observers had spotted American engineer activity and were ranging mortars. Morrison yelled, "Scatter! Get to cover!" But there was no cover in a minefield. Safe zones were the marked corridors, maybe 3 feet wide. Everywhere else was potential mines. The engineers pressed themselves flat in the cleared lanes, making themselves small targets. The second mortar round landed at 10:35, 30 meters short. The Germans were walking fire closer, standard procedure for indirect fire on uncertain targets. Each round brought them closer to accurate range. Chen made a decision. He stood up, refilled his helmet, moved to uncleared ground, poured water, watched pooling, marked a mine. Morrison saw him. "Chen, get down." "Safest place is cleared ground behind us, Sergeant. Mission requires forward progress." The logic was brutal, but accurate. They could lie in cleared corridors while German mortars walked closer, eventually landing direct hits, or they could keep working, keep clearing, keep moving forward into ground the Germans had already ranged. Morrison understood. He stood up, probed Chen's marked location, confirmed the mine. "All personnel, continue mission. Speed is survival." The squad got up and kept working. Pour, watch, mark, probe, move. The rhythm continued despite incoming fire. Third mortar round at 10:37, 20 meters short. Chen found mine number 27. Hayes found 28. Wu found 29. Fourth mortar round landed at 10:38, directly between Chen and Hayes. The explosion was 8 meters from Hayes's position. Hayes went down hard. Chen ran to him through the cleared corridor. Hayes was bleeding from shrapnel wounds in his left leg. 3 small fragment impacts, bleeding but not arterial, not immediately life-threatening, but Hayes couldn't walk. Chen dragged him back to the cleared zone. Morrison called for medic on the radio. The evacuation team arrived 5 minutes later, 2 stretcher bearers moving carefully through the marked safe corridor. They loaded Hayes and carried him out. Morrison did a head count. 7 men remaining. 80 meters cleared. 120 meters to go. Timeline: 3 hours, 25 minutes until 1400 deadline. The math still worked. 5th mortar round at 10:49, 15 meters from Wu's position. Wu kept working, found mine number 30. At 11:08, Captain Whitaker arrived at the minefield edge. He'd heard the mortar fire, expected casualties, came forward to assess whether to abort the mission. Morrison met him at the safe corridor entrance. Whitaker looked past Morrison at the field, saw white tape marking 29 mine locations across 80 meters of cleared ground. "Status?" Whitaker asked. 29 mines found, 0 detonations, 1 casualty from mortar fragment. Hayes evacuated, expected full recovery. Whitaker stared at the marked mines. "How are you finding wooden mines this fast?" Morrison showed him Chen's water technique, brought Chen over to demonstrate. Chen poured water on cleared ground, showed even drainage. Poured on uncleared ground over a suspected mine location, showed irregular pooling. The difference was visible in 3 seconds. Whitaker watched in silence for 30 seconds. Then he asked, "This isn't in any manual I've read." Chen met his eyes. "No, sir. Hardware store trick." "Does it work?" Morrison answered. 29 for 29, sir. 100% success rate so far." Whitaker made his command decision without hesitation. He keyed his radio. "Battalion headquarters, this is Whitaker. Request all available engineer squads report to my location immediately. Also request all available water containers. We're scaling a new detection method across the battalion." The radio operator acknowledged. Whitaker turned back to Morrison. "If 1 squad can clear 200 meters in 4 hours, 10 squads can clear 2 kilometers. I'm expanding the operation." Morrison nodded. "Understood, sir. We'll brief new arrivals on the water method." Chen briefs them. This is his technique. Chen felt the weight of that decision. If the method failed with other squads, if someone died because they relied on his untested theory, that would be on him. But if it worked, if other squads replicated his success rate, dozens of engineers would survive missions they otherwise wouldn't. The weight cut both ways. At 11:45, 3 more engineer squads arrived. 32 men total now. Whitaker gathered them at the field edge and explained the situation. German supply depot, 200-meter minefield, new detection method, wooden mine threat. Chen demonstrated the water technique again. Pour, watch for pooling, mark location, probe confirmation. 30 seconds per test. The new engineers watched skeptically. Sergeant Robert Chen from 4th Squad spoke up. "Sir, we're supposed to find mines with spit and a helmet?" Whitaker's voice went hard. "You're supposed to find mines without dying. Method doesn't matter. Results matter. Chen's method has found 29 mines in 2 hours with 0 detonations. Your probe technique found how many mines yesterday?" Chen said nothing. Yesterday, his squad had spent 6 hours clearing a different field, found 11 mines, lost 1 man to a detonation. Whitaker continued, "I'm organizing expanded operations. Morrison's squad finishes the original 200-meter route. Chen's squad clears a parallel route 200 meters north. 5th and 6th squads clear additional approaches. Goal is 4 cleared routes by 1400 hours. Questions?" No questions. Whitaker distributed the squads across a 400-meter front. Engineers spread out with helmets, canteens, bayonets, and white tape. The sound of the battlefield changed. Instead of slow, methodical probe work, there was constant activity. Water pouring, engineers calling out finds, probe confirmations, mines being marked. The German mortars intensified. They saw increased American activity and responded with heavier fire. 6 mortars now, ranging across the entire 400-meter engineer operations area. But the Americans kept working. The cleared ground expanded faster than German mortars could suppress it. At 12:15, Morrison's squad reached the 120-meter mark. 33 mines found. Chen's canteen was empty. Morrison's was empty. They were borrowing water from other squad members now, passing canteens forward to keep the detection work going. The German mortars had found their range. Rounds were landing within 10 meters of working engineers. Close enough to wound, close enough to kill if you were unlucky. But close enough didn't count. The engineers pressed forward. Pour, watch, mark, probe, move. Wu found mine 34 at 12:21. Chen found 35 at 12:24. Morrison found 36 at 12:28. 4 more to go if intelligence estimates were accurate. At 12:41, Chen poured water on what should have been the 37th mine location. The water drained evenly. No pooling. He moved forward, poured again, even drainage. Forward again, even drainage. He'd found the edge of the minefield. 147 meters cleared. 36 mines marked. 53 meters of uncontaminated ground between the last mine and the German depot. Morrison confirmed with probe sweeps. Clean ground. No mines in the final approach. He radioed Whitaker. Route 1 clear, 147 meters, 36 mines, 0 detonations. Safe corridor marked. Whitaker's voice came back. Outstanding. Hold position. Infantry assault launches at 1400. Morrison checked his watch. 1300 hours exactly. 1 hour ahead of schedule. The squad had cleared a 200-meter minefield in 4 hours, 10 minutes. Standard doctrine predicted 12 to 18 hours. Chen's water method had cut clearing time by 70%. But the real statistic that mattered? 0 American detonations, 0 dead engineers, 1 wounded from mortars, expected full recovery. 29 mines that would have killed someone if found by standard probe techniques. 29 potential casualties prevented by watching how water drained. Morrison looked at Chen. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The marked mines said everything. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber stood in the observation post overlooking the minefield and watched American engineers do something that shouldn't be possible. He'd designed this defensive position personally. 43 shoe mines buried across 200 meters of approach terrain. Careful placement, perfect camouflage, tactical positioning designed to maximize American casualties during clearance operations. Weber had calculated American clearing time at 12 to 18 hours using standard detection methods. He'd positioned mortars to interdict the clearing operation, force American withdrawal, or inflict casualties severe enough to disrupt their timeline. Either outcome achieved his mission: delay American advance, protect the supply depot long enough to evacuate critical materials. But the Americans had been working for 4 hours, and they'd already cleared 147 meters. Weber watched through binoculars, trying to understand how. The Americans weren't using metal detectors, weren't using the slow probe technique German intelligence reported as standard procedure. They were doing something else. Something Weber couldn't identify from 300 meters distance. He saw engineers pouring liquid on the ground, saw them mark locations, saw them probe, saw them find his mines with impossible accuracy. Weber had buried those mines himself 6 days ago. He knew exactly where each one sat. Knew the depth, the camouflage, the approach angles. He'd made them invisible to visual inspection, undetectable by standard American methods. Yet the Americans were finding them anyway. At 1300 hours, Weber radioed 7th Army Headquarters. American engineers have cleared minefield protecting Supply Depot 7. Unknown detection method, highly effective. Request instructions. The response came back in 2 minutes. Assess American capability. Determine indeterminate. Detection method can be countered. Report findings. Weber returned to his binoculars, watched American engineers working. They moved in pairs. One man poured something from a helmet or canteen. The other man probed with a bayonet. The pattern repeated constantly across a 400-meter front now. 4 separate American engineer squads working simultaneously. Weber finally saw it clearly. The Americans were pouring water, using drainage patterns to detect compression zones created by buried mines. The technique was brilliant in its simplicity. Shoe mines were buried objects. Burial created soil compression. Compression affected water drainage. Water revealed what eyes couldn't see. Weber had never encountered this method. German mine warfare doctrine included no defensive measures against water detection. Why would it? Nobody had ever used water to find mines before. He radioed headquarters again. Americans using water drainage analysis to detect mines. Method appears highly reliable. Countermeasures limited. Explain countermeasures. Weber thought for 30 seconds. If Americans were detecting surface compression patterns, the solution was to eliminate or disguise the patterns. 3 options available. First option: bury mines deeper, below the depth where surface compression was detectable, but that required excavating existing mines and reburying them. Extremely dangerous work, high probability of accidental detonation, time-consuming. The Americans would clear the field before German engineers could reposition 43 mines. Second option: create false compression patterns. Bury inert objects throughout the field to generate false positives. Force Americans to investigate hundreds of locations, waste their time. But that also required extensive burial work, also time-consuming, also impossible before American infantry assault. Third option: accept the minefield was compromised and withdraw to secondary positions. Weber chose option 3. He radioed headquarters. Recommend immediate withdrawal from Supply Depot 7. Minefield compromised. American assault imminent. Request permission to evacuate depot and fall back to secondary defensive line. Headquarters response: permission granted. Execute withdrawal. Deny supplies to enemy forces. Destroy what cannot be evacuated. Weber issued orders. His combat engineer platoon and the infantry security detachment began evacuation procedures. Critical supplies loaded onto trucks. Everything else prepared for demolition. By 13:30 hours, German forces were pulling out. The Americans had won the position without firing a shot. One engineer with a helmet full of water had forced German withdrawal from a fortified supply depot. At 13:45, Morrison's squad reached the 200-meter line. Total mines found, 41. Intelligence had estimated 40. The Germans had planted 3 more than expected. Total casualties, 1. Hayes, wounded by mortar fragment, evacuated, expected full recovery. Total detonations, 0. Mission time, 4 hours, 58 minutes. Standard doctrine predicted 12 to 18 hours minimum. Captain Whitaker inspected the cleared route personally. Walked the entire 200 meters, checking the marked mines, verifying the safe corridor. Every mine was marked with white tape. Follow-up disposal teams were already moving in, beginning neutralization procedures. Whitaker stopped where Chen was refilling canteens from a water supply point the logistics section had brought forward. "Good work, Chen." Chen nodded. "Thank you, sir." "How confident are you in the method's reliability?" 41 tests, 41 successful detections, sir. Sample size is limited, but results are consistent." "Limited? You just cleared a minefield in 1/4 the predicted time with 0 friendly detonations." "Yes, sir. But soil conditions vary. Water drainage patterns change with clay content, moisture levels, compaction. The method worked here. May not work everywhere." Whitaker studied him. "You're thinking like an engineer. Good. Write up your technique, step-by-step procedure. I'm forwarding it to Division Headquarters with my after-action report." "Sir, the method violates standard detection doctrine." Doctrine written before wooden mines became standard German practice. Doctrine needs updating. Your technique updates it." Chen said nothing. Whitaker continued. "How many engineers died last month clearing wooden minefields?" 23, sir." "How many died today using your method?" 0, sir." "Then doctrine can adapt." Whitaker walked away to inspect the other cleared routes. Morrison came over, sat down next to Chen. They were both exhausted. 4 hours of constant tension, mortar fire, mine detection work. Morrison pulled out a canteen, took a long drink, offered it to Chen. Chen drank. The water tasted like metal and iodine purification tablets. Standard Army canteen water. He'd poured maybe 8 liters of it onto Norman soil today, watching drainage patterns, finding mines. Morrison said, "You saved lives today." "We cleared a minefield, Sergeant. That's the job. We cleared it without losing anyone. That's not standard." Chen looked at the marked mines stretching back across 200 meters. 41 white tape markers. 41 explosions that didn't happen. 41 chances for someone to step wrong, trigger a mine, die screaming. None of that happened because water pooled differently over compressed soil. Morrison stood up. "Infantry assault launches in 15 minutes. We're staged as backup in case they need combat engineers forward. Get some rest." Chen nodded. Morrison walked away. Chen lay back against his pack and closed his eyes. He didn't sleep. Kept seeing water pooling on dirt. Kept calculating drainage patterns. The infantry assault launched at 1400 hours exactly. 2 companies, approximately 300 men, advancing on the German supply depot through the 4 cleared corridors Morrison's platoon had marked. The engineers watched from the minefield edge. Watched infantry move through safe lanes, spread out beyond the minefield, advance on the depot in assault formation. No resistance. The German positions were abandoned. Infantry found the depot mostly empty. Some supplies remained, but critical materials had been evacuated. Demolition charges were set but hadn't detonated. Either the Germans ran out of time or decided the supplies weren't worth denying. Infantry secured the depot by 1423. Total American casualties, 0. The mission was a complete success. 4 cleared routes, 1 captured depot, no friendly losses. Captain Whitaker gathered 2nd Platoon at 1500 hours. Outstanding work. You cleared 400 meters of minefield in under 5 hours. Found 63 mines total across all routes. 0 friendly detonations. This is the most successful mine clearance operation I've seen in 11 months of combat. The platoon didn't cheer. Engineers didn't celebrate minefield work. You did the job, survived, moved to the next mission. But Whitaker wasn't finished. Chen's water detection method is being forwarded to Third Infantry Division headquarters. I'm recommending immediate tactical evaluation for adoption across all engineer units. This technique will save lives. Chen felt 32 pairs of eyes turned toward him. He said nothing. Whitaker continued. We've got 2 days rest and refit. Then 4th Infantry Division requested engineer support for their advance. Expect more minefield work. Dismissed. The platoon scattered. Morrison came over to Chen. You're famous now. I found mines with water, Sergeant. That's not famous. You found 63 mines without killing anyone. In this war, that's famous. But fame in a combat zone meant different things than fame elsewhere. Word spread through 3rd Infantry Division that evening. Engineers talking to other engineers. Squad leaders telling platoon sergeants. Platoon sergeants telling company commanders. By evening, 200 engineers in 3rd Division knew about Chen's water technique. By the next morning, 600 knew. By July 10th, engineer companies across 3rd Division were testing the method on training fields, practice minefields, anywhere they could experiment safely. The results replicated consistently. Water drainage patterns revealed buried mines. Detection rate varied with soil conditions, mine depth, burial quality. But average success rate across different terrain, 87% for mines buried 0 to 6 inches deep, 62% for mines 6 to 12 inches, 31% for deeper burial. Those numbers were revolutionary. Standard probe techniques achieved maybe 60% detection overall. Visual inspection achieved 40%. Chen's water method matched or exceeded both techniques and did it faster. Other divisions noticed. 1st Infantry Division sent observers to watch 3rd Division engineers demonstrate water detection. 4th Infantry Division requested formal briefing. 9th Infantry Division adopted the technique immediately without waiting for official approval from higher headquarters. But official approval was slower. Major Harold Thompson was 3rd Infantry Division's engineering officer. 38 years old, West Point class of 1929, 14 years Army service, 8 months combat duty. Thompson believed in regulations, doctrine, proper procedures. He'd written parts of the Engineer Field Manual himself back in 1941. On July 12th, Thompson received Captain Whitaker's after-action report describing Chen's water detection method. Thompson read it twice, then filed it in his pending evaluation folder. Water detection violated established mine clearance doctrine. The technique had no scientific validation, no controlled testing, no engineering analysis, no formal evaluation process. Thompson's response was bureaucratically perfect. Interesting field improvisation requires formal evaluation before widespread adoption. Translation: The idea would sit on desks for 6 months while committees studied it, engineers debated it, and soldiers kept dying from wooden mines. But Captain Whitaker didn't wait for Thompson's approval. He taught Chen's method to every engineer in Third Division who'd listen. Word spread informally, engineer to engineer, sergeant to sergeant. The way real tactical innovation always spread in combat zones. Official doctrine moved at bureaucratic speed. Field innovation moved at survival speed. By July 15, 1944, 200 engineers were using water detection. By August 1st, 600. The technique spread through frontline units faster than any official doctrine ever had. Mine casualty rates in Third Infantry Division dropped 43% in July compared to June. Same terrain, same German mine tactics, different American detection method. Other divisions saw the statistics and wanted the same results. First Infantry Division requested formal briefing on water detection. Sent their senior engineer officer, Lieutenant Colonel James Patterson, to observe 3rd Division operations. Patterson watched Chen demonstrate the technique on July 20th. Watched him pour water, identify pooling patterns, mark mine locations. Watched probe teams confirm every detection. 15 tests, 15 confirmed mines, 0 errors. Patterson asked the obvious question. Why does this work? Chen explained compression zones, drainage characteristics, surface pooling. The physics were straightforward. Buried objects compress soil. Compressed soil had lower porosity. Water drained slower through compressed areas. Pooling revealed compression locations. Patterson asked, "Has anyone run controlled tests?" "No, sir, just field application." Success rate? Approximately 87% for shallow buried mines based on 3rd Division data. Lower for deeper burial. Patterson did mental math. 87% detection versus 60% for standard probe technique. 30% improvement. Across an entire division, that meant dozens of lives saved monthly. He made his decision on the spot. First Division adopts this immediately. I'll handle Major Thompson's objections. Patterson returned to First Division and issued orders. All engineer companies would train on water detection within 1 week. Mandatory proficiency for all combat engineers. The technique became official, 1st Division doctrine on July 25th. 4th Division followed on August 2nd. 9th Division on August 7th. By mid-August, estimated 4,000 Allied engineers were trained on water detection. Major Thompson finally recognized reality on August 15th. The method was working. Soldiers were using it. Casualty rates were dropping. Fighting the technique was pointless. Thompson wrote formal endorsement. Water pooling method demonstrates field effectiveness. Recommend adoption as supplementary detection technique, pending scientific validation. It was the most reluctant approval in Army engineering history. But it was approval. The Germans noticed the pattern change by late July. Radio intercepts from 7th Army headquarters included references to American mine detection improvements. American clearing times decreasing, American casualties dropping. German combat engineers analyzed captured American equipment, looking for new detection technology. Found nothing. Standard metal detectors, standard probe tools, standard visual inspection equipment. The Americans weren't using new technology. They were using water. German Engineering Command issued tactical bulletin on August 10th. American forces employ water drainage analysis for mine detection. Method effective against shoe mine 35 and similar wooden construction. Countermeasures: increase burial depth, improve camouflage, reduce compression signatures. But increasing burial depth meant more work. Improving camouflage meant more time. Reducing compression was nearly impossible without fundamentally redesigning mine construction. The practical German response? Reduce reliance on wooden mines. Return to metal-cased mines with anti-detector features. Mix mine types to force Americans to use multiple detection methods. Either way, the German tactical advantage from wooden mines was disappearing. One private with a hardware store education had neutralized a weapons system that had killed dozens of Allied engineers. And the technique was still spreading. September 19th, 1944. The Army Corps of Engineers sent a research team to Third Infantry Division headquarters. 3 civilian scientists, all from MIT's engineering department, all experts in soil mechanics and materials analysis. Their mission? Determine why Chen's water detection method worked, whether it could be formalized into official doctrine. The team leader was Dr. James Patterson. 41 years old, professor of civil engineering, specialist in soil compression and drainage dynamics. Patterson had spent 20 years studying how water moved through different soil types. He'd never considered applying that knowledge to mine detection. Patterson found Chen at a training field outside St. Lo, teaching the water technique to a group of newly arrived replacement engineers. 12 young soldiers, fresh from stateside training, learning how to find mines without dying. Chen demonstrated on a practice minefield, poured water from his helmet onto marked locations, showed the replacements how pooling patterns differed between safe ground and buried mine locations. The difference was subtle but consistent. Even spread versus irregular pooling, 2 to 3 seconds absorption time versus 5 to 7 seconds. Patterson watched 3 demonstrations, then introduced himself. Private Chen, I'm Dr. Patterson, MIT. I'd like to understand the physics behind your technique. Chen looked at him. It's compression and drainage, sir. Buried mine compresses soil. Compressed soil drains slower. Water pools over compression zones. I understand the theory. I want to measure it. Quantify the compression differential, calculate porosity changes, establish detection reliability across different soil types. Why? Patterson seemed surprised by the question. To validate the method scientifically. Determine optimal water volumes, establish soil-specific protocols, create formal training standards. Chen nodded. Respectfully, sir, the method works. Engineers are using it. Casualty rates are dropping. Scientific validation won't change those facts. No, but validation will allow us to optimize the technique. Improve reliability, extend application range, incorporate it into official doctrine. Official doctrine didn't save the 23 engineers who died in June, sir. Field improvisation did. Patterson studied Chen for a long moment. You don't trust official processes? I trust results, sir. Water detection produces results. Then help me formalize those results so every engineer in the European theater can benefit from them. Chen considered that. Patterson was right. Informal knowledge transfer worked within divisions, but scaling across the entire theater required formal documentation. Training manuals, standard procedures, official approval. What do you need, sir? Your time. 2 weeks. Help me run controlled experiments, measure variables, establish baseline performance data. Chen looked at the replacement engineers, still practicing with water and helmets. Looked at Patterson, made his decision. 2 weeks, sir. Then I returned to my unit. Patterson's team conducted 173 controlled tests over 12 days. They buried wooden boxes at varying depths in 6 different soil types: clay, loam, sand, gravel mix, organic rich topsoil, compacted hardpan. Each burial created a test case. Each test case received water application at using Chen's technique. Patterson measured everything: soil porosity before and after compression, water volume required for reliable detection, absorption time differences between compressed and uncompressed areas. Surface pooling patterns. Detection success rates across different variables. The data confirmed Chen's intuition with mathematical precision. Buried objects created measurable compression zones. Compression reduced soil porosity by 15 to 25%, depending on soil type. Reduced porosity decreased water absorption rate by 30 to 40%. Decreased absorption created surface pooling visible within 20 to 30 seconds. Detection reliability varied with conditions. Optimal results in loam and clay soils, 87% success rate for mines buried 0 to 6 inches deep. Lower results in sandy or gravelly soil, 62% success rate. Poor results in saturated ground or frozen soil, 31% success rate. Mine depth affected detection significantly. Shallow burial, 0 to 6 inches, 87% detection. Medium depth, 6 to 12 inches, 62%. Deep burial beyond 12 inches, 31%. Patterson compiled his findings into a 40-page technical report. Submitted it to the Army Chief of Engineers on October 3, 1944. The report's conclusion was unambiguous. Water pooling method for non-metallic mine detection demonstrates consistent effectiveness across multiple soil types and burial conditions. Recommend immediate adoption as standard supplementary technique for combat engineer operations. The Army Chief of Engineers approved the recommendation on October 15th. Issued formal guidance to all engineer commands. Adopt water detection as authorized supplementary method. Not a replacement for existing techniques, a supplement to visual inspection and probe procedures. Official designation, pooling method for non-metallic mine detection. Soldiers kept calling it Chen's bucket trick. By November 1944, the technique had spread beyond American forces. British Second Army requested training after observing 3rd Division engineers clearing a minefield near Aachen. British combat engineers modified the technique slightly, used mess tins instead of helmets. Smaller water volume, more portable, same detection principle. They called it tin flooding. Canadian forces developed their own variation in December. Added blue dye to water to make pooling patterns more visible against dark soil. The colored water didn't affect drainage detection, but made the visual cues more obvious for inexperienced engineers. French forces adopted the technique in January 1945, modified it for wine when water was scarce. Turned out alcohol content didn't affect surface tension enough to matter drainage. Patterns remained consistent. The method spread through informal networks faster than any official doctrine could have distributed it. Engineers teaching engineers. Practical knowledge transfer at battlefield speed. By January 1945, estimated 4,000 Allied engineers were trained on water detection across the European theater. Mine casualty statistics reflected the impact. June 1944, before water detection deployment. Third Infantry Division lost 23 engineers killed, 41 wounded in mine-related incidents. January 1945, after widespread adoption. First Army Group lost 6 engineers killed, 14 wounded across 8 divisions, 74% reduction in casualties, 4,000 engineers using a technique one private developed with a helmet and a memory of his father's hardware store. The Germans noticed, adjusted tactics, reduced wooden mine deployment, returned to metal-cased mines with anti-handling devices, mixed mine types to force Americans to use multiple detection methods simultaneously. But metal mines were detectable by standard equipment. Mixing mine types increased German logistics burden. Either way, the tactical advantage from wooden mines was gone. Private First Class Robert Chen continued combat engineering duty through France and into Germany. August 19, 44, promoted to corporal. September, assigned temporary training duty, teaching water detection to replacement engineers. October, returned to combat operations with 2nd Platoon. He cleared minefields in Hurtgen Forest in November. Horrible terrain, dense woods, frozen ground. Water detection worked poorly in frozen soil. Chen adapted, used the technique in combination with probe methods. Found 83 mines across 3 operations. 0 friendly detonations. December. Bastogne, German counteroffensive during the Battle of the Bulge. Chen's unit supported 101st Airborne Division defense. Cleared approach routes, marked enemy minefields, enabled American counterattacks. Water detection worked well in Belgian soil. Clay-heavy, good drainage differentiation. January 1945, promoted to sergeant. Assigned squad leader position. 8 engineers under his command. He taught all of them water detection. Made it mandatory training before anyone went near a minefield. February, Rhineland Campaign. Chen's squad cleared routes for 3rd Division's advance toward the Rhine River. Found 217 mines across 8 operations. Lost 1 man, Corporal David Martinez. Killed by German artillery fire, not mine-related. Artillery, March, Germany. 3rd Division crossed the Rhine on March 26th. Chen's squad cleared mines on the eastern bank. German resistance collapsing now. Fewer organized minefields, more improvised obstacles. Water detection remained effective for wooden mines, less useful for hastily buried metal mines. April. Chen participated in 3rd Division's final advance through southern Germany. German forces retreating on all fronts. Soviet forces approaching from the east. American and Soviet armies would meet soon. May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. Germany surrendered. War in Europe ended. Chen survived. 11 months of combat engineering from Normandy to Bavaria. Personally detected 347 mines using water pooling method. 0 mines detonated during his detection work. His squad lost 2 men during the 11 months, both to artillery fire, neither to mines. July 1945, 3rd Infantry Division held awards ceremony in Bavaria. Corporal Chen received the Bronze Star. Citation read, "For meritorious achievement in development and application of mine detection technique resulting in significant reduction of combat engineer casualties during operations in France and Germany, June 1944 through May 1945. The citation didn't mention violating regulations, didn't mention unauthorized techniques, didn't mention using equipment in non-standard ways. Official recognition focused exclusively on results. Lives saved, missions accomplished, innovation under combat conditions. Chen accepted the medal, saluted Captain Whitaker, returned to formation. He didn't feel particularly heroic. He'd solved a problem using basic physics and hardware store logic. Other engineers did the dangerous work, walking into minefields with water and faith that drainage patterns wouldn't lie. September 1945. Chen received discharge orders. The war was over. Army was demobilizing, sending soldiers home. Chen boarded a Liberty ship at Le Havre on September 23rd, crossed the Atlantic, arrived in New York on October 7th, took a train to California.